Opposition leader Angus Taylor is due to deliver his first budget reply speech tonight, and in it he's expected to propose barring new migrants from accessing welfare benefits until they are Australian citizens, as well as tying net immigration to the number of new homes built. Professor Alan Gamlen is director of the Australian National University Migration Hub and joins us now from Canberra. Hi there, Alan.
Hi, Ros.
So what welfare payments do non-citizens receive as things stand?
Well, few. This is really, interestingly, kind of a solution in search of a problem. It responds to a well-known international stereotype that migrants laze around on benefits, which is false. Migrants are, in fact, net contributors fiscally. They contribute more in taxes than they consume in benefits. And one reason for that is that the temporary migrant population, which is a large and growing portion of the migration system, is not entitled to welfare or NDIS or any substantial benefits, despite the fact that they pay taxes to fund those entitlements. So the Coalition's proposal is, so far as it looks now, of course we're still waiting for the budget reply speech, is about cracking down on the entitlements that permanent residents have as compared with Australian citizens. And those two sets of entitlements are very close. The permanent residents are people who, many of them have already sort of spent a probationary period here on a temporary visa in Australia, gaining local skills and experience. And Australia needs them in the workforce. Australia wants them to integrate and and keep doing their jobs well and become part of the community. Taking away their entitlements is probably not the right thing to do if we care about those things, about integration, social cohesion and productivity, people doing their job well.
Alan, how long does it take to become an Australian citizen from arrival in the country?
It takes a while. It can take you can become entitled after 3 years, essentially, to apply. So it can take, any time upward of that. And, for a lot of people it takes a lot longer because they're on this, everyone goes on a different temporary visa pathway before they get to it. You can apply directly from abroad, but that's actually now, in contrast with the earlier periods, the minority of people in the permanent program. The majority of people who come through the permanent program now are already on shore, and they go through this pathway of being on a temporary visa for a while.
Right.
So that the permanent program has been capped and stable for a long time, to the extent that we have issues with volatility in migration and the migration system. The problems are largely located within the temporary migration program, which has metastasised over recent decades. And those people already aren't entitled to social benefits, so this is really not solving any existing problem.
Turning to the Coalition's proposal now to link migration to housing, the Coalition is proposing 1 migrant to 1 new home. What do you make of those numbers?
Well, it's in principle a good idea to link migration and population growth to planning, but there are a few caveats around how this particular proposal looks to be aiming at that. One is we need to be careful to understand that planning is more than just housing, and we also need to be careful not to overstate the relationship between migration and house price growth, and housing cost growth. So housing costs, the housing crisis, clearly a major puzzle in Australia and across the OECD, in fact, at the moment. It certainly matters, a big puzzle, but migration is a small piece of it. Migration contributes to both demand for housing, new people needing housing, but it also contributes to the supply of housing through primarily labour across the supply chain that delivers housing. So those two things kind of cancel each other out, and that means that it's really the other factors, the other pieces of the housing puzzle that really matter and need to be addressed. Migration is a pretty small part of it, and targeting that to, overemphasising the role of migration in housing is kind of a red herring. And then the other problem is there's mixed reports at the moment about how the coalition is proposing to go about making this more direct link between migration and housing policy. Some reports from senior journalists have said that, in line with leaked policies a few weeks ago, they're aiming at a net migration target. There's been some people in the know are saying that that's not in fact the case. They're not going to propose a net migration target. We'll see what Angus Taylor says in his budget reply speech tonight. If they do propose a net migration target, that's not a good idea. The international consensus is that net migration targets don't work. They can't work. That's because about half of net migration is departures. It's people leaving, which no liberal democracy has any business controlling. So net migration is not a policy lever, it's an accounting outcome. So it's not a good way to deal with the problem.